Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity. It's a little bit, I'm a little bit unprepared because it was confirmed last evening, and I will explain you in a second why I'm here speaking instead of somebody else. Look, let's start with a bit of a landscape, where we are in terms of CEE, comparing GDP to net worth of the most richest people in the world and its source. And then the values of the companies that are more or less linked to the names that you see here, right? Poland is getting very proud now in the recent days about becoming the 20th economy in the world with a value expected to become 1 billion this year. 3 richest Americans have a bigger net worth than the Polish GDP. None of the companies they created is older than 35 years, which is the transformation time of the Polish economy. So, you know, we're celebrating in Poland, where I come from, that we're becoming a $1 billion economy this year. And in the meantime, people on the other side of the Atlantic, they've been building how many multi-trillion-dollar companies, right? So I think one of the problems that we're facing at the moment in Europe, not only in the CEE, but CEE is still way behind after Western Europe, is the fact that we stopped creating really groundbreaking, market-enabling innovations. The last big companies that were started in Europe were the second industrial revolution companies, like Siemens. And then you have how many examples? Okay, ASML, SAP, this is something newer from the third industrial revolution. We have lots of luxury companies, which are great, but we are absolutely lagging behind in terms of creating really big trillion-dollar companies. Then if you look at unicorns, Central Europe is really lagging behind, except Estonia, which is funny, because if you look at here, the size of the economy and how much innovation, how many unicorns have been created, it's really outstanding. And the final landscape, look at the numbers, compare of deep tech funding in Europe to regular, 5 times less, and then I don't see any CEE country, unfortunately, on the right hand, which shows the biggest individual markets in terms of investment. And here it is why we are meeting. Now I will explain you the story behind Nevomo and how we've managed to, I hope, create one of this type of groundbreaking market-creating innovation, even though we're coming from a very difficult geography, which is Central Europe. All of you had to arrive somehow here, right? So I think all of you experience issues of the current transportation systems. Congested airports, delayed flights, pollution and traffic jams. Me personally, since 6 months, I have like another reason to change this, because I had a nasty car accident 6 months ago. This is unfortunately not my friend. This is someone who was helping me out. And it's funny, not funny to say it. I'm here because the person that was supposed to be speaking at 11 had a car accident yesterday. Hopefully nothing also happened to him. And in the back of the room, I see a person who is a nominee for the awards here from Poland, who was also the one that I met just after this accident, and it wasn't really a nice experience. My car simply turned. And what's the takeaway from this? The takeaway is very simple. Rail needs a new revival, because a railway car cannot turn like this, and this is just one of the important reasons. We expect the transport demand to triple by 2050. What can we do with it? We can put more planes in the sky, more cars and trucks on the road. It's all polluting. I don't think we are able to electrify all of it by 2050. And even if we managed, we are absolutely unable to have enough space on physical assets because they are super congested. And then you have the rail, the safest, the most eco-friendly, but the most underutilized mode of transportation. Why so underutilized? Because we keep using what was invented 200 years ago. Exactly, we are celebrating this year 200 years of first railway connection in the UK. For traction, which is acceleration and braking. Steel wheel running over steel rail, it's a great interface for guidance, so keeping the direction and keeping the cruising speeds. But for acceleration and braking, it's terrible because it's super slippery and you have an 8 times longer braking distance than for a car at the same speed, which translates directly into low capacity, frequency, and flexibility. So all the reasons why rail transportation loses to road. If you have a highway next to a railway line, like in the case of southern Poland, you see highway is always super crowded, railway line is empty. Just every dozen of minutes something passes, and this is the reason. And what if we could, I hope it works, exchange this mode of transport as a retrofit, so it's not a new system, it's addition to existing system, into a contactless, electromagnetic, digitally controlled and AI-enabled linear motor, which doubles the capacity, introduces car-like frequency and flexibility of operations, and later in the future, we can even add magnetic levitation to double the speed. It has 2 elements. You have kind of magnetic surfboard beneath the wagon, which is a retrofit to existing wagons. It's passive energetically, so you don't need to add any energy transition, which makes it simple and scalable. And then you have a electromagnetic wave generator in the track, which attracts the magnets and pushes the wagon forward or brakes with energy recuperation. It's a bit like taking an existing car, ripping it off of a combustion engine, adding a battery and a motor, and you get an EV. In our case, you don't need to eliminate anything. You just add additional elements as a retrofit, which saves so much money and so much time. It can be done in short months instead of years. And of course, you don't need any additional land nor lots of resources. And now we're going to the market, low, hanging fruit market, which we exploit first, because all of you probably are thinking how crazy one has to be to try to innovate in rail, which is so backwards. And we had to find the product market fit in a segment which is ready for it, which is industrial and intermodal logistics. So there are 2 segments of our markets. Industrial is big factories, steel, chemical, petrochemical, mining, and so on, where in rail logistics is part of the industrial process. And then intermodal, these are ports and terminals, mostly for containers, but not only. And the big issues that they are facing is lack of personnel. In ports, there are no real automated horizontal transportation solutions based on road transportation. It's not really fully automated. Then European Union has spent lots of money together with the railway supply industry and the users to develop something which is called digital automated coupling. So a system connecting wagons in an automated way. Great, it works, it's costly. And the issue, 75% of existing shunting locomotives, so the ones that operate in factories and in terminals and in ports, cannot use it for technical reasons. And then the biggest real issue why we cannot electrify industrial and intermodal logistics is that it collides the catenary that we use on main lines to propel trains to transfer electricity. It cannot be used for loading and unloading because it conflicts with the mechanisms. Here you're going to have a look how our system will look in a port setup. So as I was saying, we're filling the gap of the horizontal automated transport, because what you see here is a fully automated crane, and they are already in the market, lots of them. And now what we are adding is this fully automated movement of wagons, which can move in groups. What's important, the track is segmented, so it's fed with electricity only on short sections. And here you see the magic. Each wagon can go wherever it wants. without any locomotive and any human control, and then the loading and unloading of it, as I said, which is not possible with catenary. Okay, and where we are in terms of market, so we have very strong pull from both segments already. We were actually thinking we're going to need to complete our first project in order to launch into other segments, but it's not the case. The need for automation and electrification in both market segments, it's enormous, so the clients are really piling up. So we're in the process of implementing our first project in Germany with ArcelorMittal and Captrain, which is a subsidiary of the French Railways SNCF. And then we're at the verge of signing a second contract in India with Kandala Port, which is one of 13 biggest government-managed ports in India. And here our partner is DP World, which is the port of Dubai. The funny fact is that Dubai port, which is number 9 globally, has a bigger capacity than all 13 Indian ports combined. So imagine the level of investment that will happen in the coming years, given all the geopolitical tensions and how India is now improving in terms of growth and the manufacturing. So here are the markets. We're also quite focused on Middle East with a very strong partnership with Etihad Rail, which is the Etihad railway company. The whole pipeline, and on the left hand you have it with one mega project in the Middle East, which is somehow blurring the picture. So on the right hand, every 6 months we are able to grow. Last 6 months, the whole pipeline under business development more than doubled. And we can scale it in a couple of ways. Within the same site of a client, so the first implementation with Arcelor in Bremen, we have a term sheet for extension. We can scale it to other sites of the same client. Now we're talking with ArcelorMittal Poland, which is very interested. Other steel companies, in this case Germany and India, and we're doing more or less the same into launching into other segments of the industrial, subsegments of the industrial market, and the same will happen with ports, with opportunistic approach like the partnership with Etihad Rail to launch into external open network. On top of product innovation, we've developed a business model innovation, which is called Rail as a Service, which allows some clients not to pay upfront fees for the installation of the equipment, but they can pay per use. And for us, the advantage is that we tap into the upside generated, which is huge because we can lower operational costs by up to 80%. And we can get recurring multi-year contract up to 30-year revenues from this. What it really does for the client in this as a service model. So the orange part is a short half-a-kilometer section in the ArcelorMittal Bremen facility in North Germany, where the client now needs 2 hours to move just 5 wagons with a diesel locomotive between 2 stages of manufacturing process. With our system, it's going to be reduced from 2 hours to 5 minutes. 10 wagons to 5 wagons, and the operational costs from $500,000 a year to 150,000, and we're going to consume most of this as our revenue. For Rail as a Service, we have lots of subsidies in Europe, and we're planning just to do this project on our balance sheet, and we're working on creating an external balance sheet which will be financing this with financial and industrial partners. There is no direct competition. The technology is super well protected in terms of patents, and this is really crucial. But there are alternatives. We're fighting diesel locomotives. There are still battery locomotives and hydrogen. Just to give you an example, the first client canceled their hydrogen locomotive project after 3 weeks. And there are 2 companies in the US working on battery-propelled wagons, but this is really not something that works properly. What we did is we consolidated the initial the initial founders team. So I consolidated it 3 years ago. And in the meantime, we started hiring really super experienced railway people with 40 and more years of experience. And Harj is a very interesting person, and I will spend a little bit more on him because he was a managing director of Hyperloop One, which was the biggest investor was DP World, which is the port of Dubai. And they shut it down around almost 3 years ago. Harj had joined us a little bit previously, and it has taken us this time to convince DP World to start working with us. And what's really funny, and I will relate to this in a moment, that we were kind of inspired by Hyperloop in 2017, considered by the whole industry as an underdog with our, MagRail, which is kind of faced Hyperloop. And then it turned out that we are commercializing, and the Hyperloop companies are going in a very strange direction with Hyperloop One not there anymore. What was unorthodox, and here I would like to maybe ask one question to Mary. I think I can do it. We've known each other for so long, right? Almost 2 days. That I can later, maybe you could answer. I believe that at least in Europe, the VC model is really unable to finance this type of groundbreaking, market-creating innovations at early stage. And we had to escape it through equity crowdfunding, which might sound very silly, through raising very little rounds, as the fact that you were, somehow commenting 2 days ago and yesterday that it's not the best approach. We had no choice. And with raising money from family offices and leveraging really a lot of money from the EU structural funds from Poland and then EU accelerators. So it all started with Hyperloop inspiration in 2016 with a student team from Warsaw University of Technology that I joined. And then we launched the company. Very early on, we understood Hyperloop is going to take ages or not, will never be implemented. And we developed this kind of phased solution, leveraging existing railway assets, which are underutilized. We've been raising very little rounds, moving from small to medium to full-scale prototypes, using lots of external EU funding, and evangelizing the market first, and then finding, the first customers. This is our test track in Southeast Poland, where we leverage lots of EU money from this, especially the grant part of the EIC accelerator, and now we are in the process of moving to the equity part. And my last message, what I think is missing in Europe is 2 things. One is on the entrepreneur side, and this is the courage to develop new markets through innovations, not just follow trends and hype on AI. Sorry to say that, I think 90% of this will be worth nothing in 3 years, right? Many will be worth something of these companies, but 90% will be worth absolutely zero. But many people will make lots of money along the way, right? And I think what this guy once said, it's very true. Every billion-dollar industry starts with a 0 billion market, right? And the second message that I have is that we need a much braver financing system, right? Because there's so much money in the EU. Just the Dutch pension system, if I'm not mistaken, is 16 trillion assets under management. It's so much money, but it doesn't float into this, right? And we have all the capacities. We're a very particular case because we are building on the strengths of European railway supply and maritime logistics, which are really, we are top in the world, right, in this. So we are building on this. But of course, we need more money. We have to follow this kind of unorthodox financing. Our lead investor in the Series A from Liechtenstein, because they are not fully registered yet, they are using a feeder fund in Luxembourg, channeling, tickets even from 25,000 from angels. So again, we are somehow innovating together with our investors. Of course, also bigger tickets coming in. Finally, we're onboarding VCs in this process, but it has taken us 7 years, and really no big VC wanted to talk to us until that moment, and we still had to survive. So I like to say it's been an 8 years constant crisis management, which is tiring, but hopefully it will be rewarding. So my message is here really from I think especially in CEE, where we have lots of technical talent, and it was also mentioned on the previous panel, but then the Americans build the companies, right? We need to somehow, improve on the sales, commercialization, entrepreneurial part, and I think the key here is still to building really international, very experienced funding teams, because without them, we don't have enough experience and network here. We need to support ourselves with people from outside. Thank you very much. And please answer the question if you can.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing your experience. I think we're hearing echoes of part of the challenges here. I think there is funding available, but it's not always easy to convince the institutionals to take that risk. But it sounds like you've navigated that through a mix of other funding sources. But I mean, to answer I think we tried to show in the previous panel, there are investors here that are willing to take those risks. But I think it is particularly challenging at a pre-seed and seed phase, before you have that validation and when you're still looking for this commercialization path. But yeah, thank you and kudos to you for surviving.
Thank you very much. Can you name any investors that would be bold enough in early stage to finance something like this, which has no benchmarks? Let's call it this way, right?
I think that's the name of the. I think Day One was here. We're also happy to speak later. So thanks so much, Ben. Enjoy the day.
Thank you, everyone.